Welcome to Cowgirl Talk, where we empower you to live authentically through real food, real talk, and real life. Sisters brought together by our love of cows. We're your host, Emily, a dairy lover and personal trainer living in Florida.
And Becca, a corporate cowgirl holding down the family fort in Pennsylvania. Let's go, cowgirls!
Hello, and welcome back to Cowgirl Talk. We are so excited for today's episode, as I say that every episode because I get very excited every time we get to have a really fun conversation with someone outside of just Becca and I. And for both Becca and I, every now and then we like to enjoy a glass of wine. I would consider Becca a little bit more of a connoisseur than I am. And I'm sure some of our listeners also like to enjoy a glass of wine every now and then. And so today we are welcoming Tara Beaver Coronado, a badass woman in ag, mom, and first generation wine grape grower, and also an owner of dogs, if you're able to hear them in the background. And we already gave her the rundown before this that Becca's dog, Phoebe, as everyone knows, is a ball of chaos. So I was like, hey, you're going to fit right on in with this. It's going to be absolutely fine. But again, Tara, she grows grapes that end up in some of the delicious wine that we drink in her vineyard, Beaver Vineyards in California. And again, I don't know a ton about wine, and so I'm very excited to be able to dive into this conversation and learn more about what goes from getting it from the ground into the bottles at the store. So, hi, Tara. Thanks for joining us. We're so excited to have you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And it figures that the whole warm-up, they were silent, and the second you hit record, they start barking. And I was like, why didn't I just put them in the house? Like, why didn't I do that? But yes, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to talk to you guys and tell you about what I do. And yeah, the whole adventure that farming has become. And yeah, I'm excited for today's episode.
Yes, so are we. And again, no worries. We let this conversation, the episodes go where they go. And we know that everyone listening always has a million things going on. So if there's some noise in the background, everyone's probably like, oh, I feel that.
I'm pretty sure the last time we had an interview, the listeners got to watch me throw a pillow at my dog because she was being so annoying. So we're all good here.
It happens. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay, but before we dive into the art of winemaking, or more so growing the grapes to get there, I would love for our listeners just to get to know who you are. And for me, I don't remember the exact moment that I followed you, but for me, I started Dairy Girl Fitness, my other page, in 2018. And I think I've been following you, it feels like, since the beginning. And so I'm just honestly excited to learn more about your stories. I've always really admired what you've done, so everyone else can get a little bit of an idea. Yes, please give a little bit of an introduction of yourself, almost like an elevator pitch of yourself.
So huge bumblebee. Maybe sitting outside wasn't the best.
They know.
Okay, so I think I probably started my farming Instagram, probably similar to the same time as you. So maybe we started following each other in the beginning. But yeah, so I grew up on a farm in California. My dad grew corn and alfalfa and also has a land leveling business, all within agriculture. And I kind of wandered off, did my own thing. I loved growing up on the farm, but I never thought I was gonna be a farmer. So I kind of was leaning towards maybe a teacher or something where I would work with kids. I ended up moving out of state for a short period, and I was a nanny, and I absolutely loved it. I loved being a nanny. I worked with the most incredible family. I can't say enough good things about them. It was really a dream job, but I guess there was just something in the back of my mind that was like, do I want to be a nanny forever? And it's funny because the mom came back to me one time and she was like, I would have found work for you forever. Even when my kids were grown, I would have had something for you to do. So it's funny because we really did get close, but it was kind of just like I said, it's do I want to be a nanny forever? Is this what I want to do? And I kind of just felt the farm kind of calling me and pulling me back. And every time I'd go and visit my parents, I just found that I didn't want to leave. I wanted to be there. So in 2014 and end of 2014, beginning of 2015, I ended up quitting my nanny job and moving back to the farm. And my dad, when I started working with my dad, he was like, I'm happy to have you work with me, but if you want to be on the farm, I just really want you to find your own path. And yeah, I mean, I could go into a long story, but my own path became the vineyard. And then the reason I started social media was I just felt like a lot of friends and family wanted to know how it was going. Like, what was I up to? What was I doing? How was the farm going? Very small town. So everyone just wanted to know. So I just started sharing it on social media, started the Instagram account Beaver Vineyards, which now it's just turned into my name, Tara Beaver Coronado. And that's why I really started sharing it on social media in the beginning, was just so friends and family could follow along.
Back in the fun days.
Yeah.
Right. Whenever you'd
Back
post
when it was
like your
easy.
cereal with a frame around it.
Literally, my first posts are so embarrassing. Like, this is what I had for breakfast today.
But so I think that you were starting to kind of allude to it, and we want to hear about it. But Emmy and I, as we were stalking your Instagram, as one does, you had a post in August that said, 10 years ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. 6 years ago, I put sticks in the ground, praying I was making the right decision. And this week, we'll be finishing my 5th harvest. So give us a little bit more of the juicy details of how you decided. Yeah, thank you. Of how and why you decided grapes in a vineyard. So what led you in that direction whenever the farm called you back?
Yeah, so it really kind of started out, I think, like where we live, we're in Northern California. There's a show called Good Day Sacramento. It's like, I feel like everyone has those, like the morning shows, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were highlighting a place called the Center for Land-Based Learning. And they had a class called the California Farm Academy. And my dad was like, I think you should look into this and just like see what you think. And I was never great like at college. I ended up dropping out of college. Like, I'm not a good book learner. It just is not like the way I learn. And this California Farm Academy by Center for Land-Based Learning was a 7-month program where it was like 2 or 3 days a week and you were on a farm. And like one day you would maybe be doing a little bit of book work, and then the next day you're on the farm, like doing mixed vegetables. We did CSA boxes. And then like once a month or so, we did a field trip to a farm and like to see a new farming operation. So it just was so important for me because it showed me other areas of agriculture, because I really only knew corn and alfalfa. And because at a younger age, I didn't think I was going to be a farmer. Like, I didn't take ag classes or anything like that where like I would have explored other areas of ag. So it was so eye-opening for me. And we visited a vineyard. I really loved it. I loved the vineyard. I loved how it operated. And where I live, I'm really close to multiple different wine regions. I'm about an hour from Napa. I'm about 30. Yeah, if you ever want to come.
I love Napa.
Yes, Napa's beautiful. And then I'm about 30 minutes from another popular area called Lodi. And then there's another area called Clarksburg. So we have these like really popular wine regions. And I was just like, okay, like grapes fit here. This would be a good thing to plant. I could find mentors. And then at the end of California Farm Academy, kind of like let's say like the final of the class, they invited landowners, bankers, like those people that you need in farming, and we had to present a business plan to them. And that was so vital for me because I'm really like sporadic and like I have a really hard time like following through getting things done. But it was like it forced me to make a business plan, it forced me to make a budget, and I presented it. And that really is what turned into Beaver Vineyards. Like, I took that business plan and I made it a reality. And yeah, so I did that class in 2015. And by 2017, we were doing dirt work. So I had gotten the loan, figured everything out. You know, I had a really, really strong mentor that still helps me to this day, that helped me make those connections of like, where am I going to get all the vines from? Like, what's the nursery? What winery is going to buy my grapes? And then, yeah, I got married. I always say I got married in April of 2018. And 2 days after our wedding, we planted the vineyard.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a
That's
crazy
awesome.
week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of how I like found myself in the vineyard.
Wow, that's such a cool story. And I think what one of my favorite parts about the conversations we have, so many of the women's journeys just go a way that they maybe never thought, but lands them right where they're kind of supposed to be. And we know that, you know, there's a lot of life left, but it's so awesome that you kind of found yourself in there unintentionally. And also, this academy sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Is that something that they still offer?
So I actually found out they just ended California Farm Academy.
No.
I know, I was so bummed to hear this. I try to stay connected with Center for Land-Based Learning. However, even though they've maybe paused California Farm Academy, they do have a lot of other programs. Like, their goal is to bring people into agriculture and also help a lot of people that have no ag background. Like, there might have been 15 or so people in my class, and only me and one other person had ag background.
Wow.
So it's a lot
Wow.
of people coming into agriculture that don't know anything about it. And they are helping people, you know, even just get a quarter of an acre that want to do CSA boxes or things like that. And so Center for Land-Based Learning is still like a thriving business, but they are pausing the California Farm Academy. But I think if people are in California, Northern California, and are interested in agriculture, I would still look them up because they still might have something that you can work with.
Wow. That's awesome. I think it's
is
fabulous that they find more ways to get more people involved, especially the younger generation, right? Because as we know, there's like this big gap in between it. So that's so cool that you found that and that you got to do it before potentially, you know, they put a pause on it. And we know that starting a business in general is scary. It's really hard. So I think it's so vital that you had a mentor. But we also know that agriculture just adds an entire another element to it, right? Like, you can do everything right and nothing may go your way, right? Due to weather, due to labor, whatever it may be. And so with you now running this business, and again, being multiple years into it, I would love to hear, what do you feel has maybe, and this might be like hard to narrow down, so it's okay if it goes a couple different ways, but we would love to hear maybe some of the hardest, some of the most rewarding, and then even maybe some of the weirdest or the craziest parts that you've dealt with and what you've really learned about starting and running this business, especially, again, like food that can go a million different ways due to so many factors.
Yeah. So I would say the hardest thing for me was probably like early on was definitely land and the loan. I mean, that's huge. I had, and like, I really am so privileged because if I had no agriculture background, I don't know, I wouldn't be where I am today. Absolutely, people with no ag background can get into the business, but I mean, you have to be so determined, like really determined. So I had a piece of land that I was going to lease lined up, and it fell through like last minute,
Oh,
which was so stressful, like so stressful. Um, it was devastating. It was devastating because I just felt like I had everything lined up perfectly, everything ready to go, and then this fell through. So the hardest was definitely the land thing. I was devastated. I had it all lined up, and that, like, it's like, well, I can't farm without ground, you know? And so my parents own property that my dad was farming all of it at the time. And he made the decision that I could disc out 50 acres of alfalfa to plant the vineyard, you know? And I'm not saying, no, I couldn't have found more ground eventually, but I mean, I was like ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Mhm.
was a big decision for my parents because the alfalfa wasn't ready to come out, you know. So I really, like I said, I feel extremely privileged and lucky that they made that decision. So I do lease ground from my parents. I didn't buy it. Um, and then the loan, oh my gosh, like I feel like because I planted in 2018 and I didn't, and my first harvest was 2020. Um, and I feel like I was holding my breath for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It just is terrifying. Like, I, I just so many times was like, why would they give me that much money? Like, why did they do it? And like, I
I'm an adult.
remember, I know, I'm like, what? And like, I will have, this is a core memory for me. And this is such like, I mean, I feel like maybe the majority of farm families are pretty close. Maybe not,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess our family is so close, like
Yeah.
very, very close. My mom and my sister went on a vacation, like a really huge vacation together to Scotland. It was like a bucket list item for my mom.
Hmm.
And while my mom was in Scotland, I woke up in the middle of the night and I called her and I was crying that like I'm gonna lose everything. Like I just was having like a
Yeah.
meltdown. And this is
Mm-hmm.
like and it is like it's like am I an adult? I'm calling my mom right now in the middle of the night. She's on like her dream vacation and I'm just like why did I do this? Why did I do this? Like why did I borrow this much money? Like, is it all
Mhm.
gonna fail? Like, I have no idea
Mm-hmm.
because there is such a long period. Like, I mean, every single crop is stressful. Every single crop is
Yep.
stressful. But like, it wasn't like I'm planting this year and in 6, 7, 8 months I'm gonna have my crop and I'm gonna know. Like, I was just like bleeding money for literally years before
Mm-hmm.
knowing like, oh, am I gonna be able to make a payment or like slippery slope like using your loan to make your bank payment. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like
Mhm.
terrifying. So that was a lot of stress. So and I mean I'm not in the clear yet, but like
Yeah.
at least now I've had 5 successful harvests where it's like okay, every year I'm like okay, like I know how much money I need to hold. Like obviously things still happen and you know bills you don't expect come up, but like I have a good idea where like I just took on something so huge as my first farming operation and I literally am just like who gave me this money? Like what were you thinking? What were you thinking? So yeah, that was definitely the scariest. The land was frustrating and then
Mm-hmm.
just the stress of like are we going down? Like are we going
Mm-hmm.
to go
Yeah.
bankrupt and then like I screw my parents too? Like you know, it was scary. It was scary. And I still can't think about it too much because it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just got to keep going.
Yeah. I would say ag is wild for that. I mean, like, that's just almost a part of it that so many have to learn how to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of do have to just like not think about it, which took me years to be able to like not think about it every second of every day. And I am lucky because like I mean my dad can be pretty negative. Like he's definitely like old farmer, so like he sometimes wouldn't help the situation. But like my mom, she'd just be like, "You have no choice but to make it. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no other option. Like the only option is to just keep going forward, and like you are going to be successful. Like you know how hard you have to work, like you know what you have to do. Like mom and dad are here to support you in every way we can, but like you have to do this. You made this
Mm-hmm.
decision, you know, and it's like, okay, I can do it. I can do
What is the Taylor Swift song, Do It With a Broken Heart?
it.
Like, I feel like those lyrics are literally this, like, just about crying and showing up and doing it
Yeah.
anyways, because, yeah, agriculture is, I mean, any business, right? But again, it's something
Yeah.
that it takes a little bit while to reap that benefit, which can be so scary. But with going through the scary, hard parts, what do
Yeah.
you feel like have been maybe like even just that moment of not like I made it because there is always progress, but like wow, this is amazing. Like was there a moment that you recognized this is worth it? Like this is where I'm supposed to be?
I mean, definitely the first harvest. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
2020, my first harvest was just absolutely amazing. Like I every year my crop increased, like my yields, you know. So that the first year I felt like I blew it out of the water. Like I got way more than I was expecting on a first year crop. And every year, you know, my mentor would come out and like some other people in the industry, and they just be like, oh my gosh, like there's so much. And everyone's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's just happening. Like, you know, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, there are certain things that you hire a crew for. Like, I can't prune 50 acres by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, but outside of things that needed full on crews, like for the first few years, basically until I got pregnant, I did everything by myself, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I really was out there every single day doing
Wow.
everything, you know? I mean, like I said, there are things that you need a whole crew for. It's not a one or even a two-man job. You know, there could be 20 people out there. But if it was something that one or two people could do, I was the one doing it. And I do think that made a difference because I just had the literal blood, sweat, and tears in it. And I did definitely have the pressure of like, okay, I can't fail. I can't fail
Mm-hmm.
because it's on my parents' property and I just like, I need to like keep this going. Um, but so my first harvest definitely was like a beautiful moment of being like, okay, like I did this, it went great. And then I think probably my second harvest as well, because my second harvest, my son was like 3 weeks old.
Oh.
God, is that right? Because my first harvest was 2020, and then my second harvest was 2021, and he was born in 2021. So yeah,
Yeah.
so like yeah, I'm like whoa, it's crazy because it's like I've had 5 harvests now, and he's still a baby. Um, but like he was 3 weeks old at my second harvest, and it was just kind of like, okay, I'm keeping the legacy alive. Like my son is here now because like as
Mm-hmm.
we all know, farming is a lifestyle. It's not
Yeah.
just a job.
Mhm.
And if I didn't decide to keep farming, my son wouldn't have that lifestyle that I want him to have. And like my husband's not a farmer. He does not work in the ag industry. He works in the medical field. He works at a hospital. Does not come from farming background, like none of that. I totally dragged him to the farm.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. He's like not so sure about it, but he's still here after
You'll get
10
there.
years. So yeah, one day, one day. Um, but yeah, so it was beautiful for me to think like, okay, I'm giving my son the life that I loved. So those are probably two really big points in my life of like that the first harvest and then having my son there. And now every year, you know, he gets to go up on the harvester, and it's like I have these photos every year of him like getting bigger on the harvester.
Those,
Oh, I
I love
love
those. They're
that.
adorable.
Yeah.
Well, I I just love hearing how, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into that first harvest, and I'm sure every single one since. And one of the things I realized coming into this interview was I have no idea how grapes are grown. I
Same.
love drinking them and I love eating them. But what I know, I would love to learn, and Emmy would love to learn, and I think our listeners will find super interesting is like, okay, take us from point A, like in the field, stick in the ground. See, I don't even know where you start, right? Do you put like a seed in the
A
ground,
seed.
to the bottle that we're going to buy at the grocery store. So I would love a 101 crash course on what you do.
Okay, I'll give you as much.
She's like,
we're gonna do
strap
this.
in, take notes.
I'll give you as much as I know. Because sometimes I really do feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm like, maybe this is just how we feel forever. I'm not really sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. So for me, like I had previously said, like step one was land and loan, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I'll just like say this up front. Um, every region that grows wine grapes is different.
Okay.
The way they do things, their cultural practices is different.
Mm.
So if someone from Napa is listening to this podcast, they're not going to be a fan.
Mind your
Um,
business.
yeah, just they're not going to be a fan. Which is actually funny because I actually skipped this part of my story. I just realized I could go back really quick. Is after I finished my business plan for California Farm Academy, I actually went to the junior college in Napa for 1 year.
Oh.
I just took viticulture classes. Like I was not there to get a
Mm-hmm.
degree. I just was like, because it's an hour, but it's not really that bad. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm just going to take viticulture classes and learn as much as I can. And then I'm going to plant the vineyard. So I got the feeling of like the Napa vibe versus our vibe. And I would say, I mean, Napa is Napa. You can't argue it. But like Napa has like this, like personality that they have to upkeep.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I feel like Lodi and Clarksburg and where I farm, like, it's more like we're farmers. Even the
Yeah.
wineries, they're like,
Mm.
we're farmers. Where in Napa, it's like, it's Napa wine and it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
up on a pedestal, which there's nothing wrong with that. We need all the levels, but it just works differently. So I can only tell you, obviously, the way I do it.
Yeah. I feel like
Um,
Napa is probably an entire experience versus
yeah,
it
Yeah.
and
feels
just
like you're more
and
in the production of wine versus the experience of wine, maybe.
well, a little. Well, me personally, absolutely. But
Yeah.
like Lodi, like if you went, like there's tons of amazing wineries in Lodi. It is, if you live in California, you should know Lodi. Like it's another
Mm-hmm.
wine region. Um, but Lodi, like when you're going on wine tours there, like you're gonna probably feel like you're more out in the country.
Yeah.
Where if you're in Napa, like you could be in like high heels, and like in
Mm.
Lodi, you're wearing your cowgirl boots. But like it's
Yeehaw.
still beautiful wine country. It's just like a
Yeah.
different vibe, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a couple examples like as I tell you, but I just don't know exactly how they do it in Napa. I just know they might not be a fan of the way I do it. So, okay, so we get the land, we have to like prep the ground, which is just kind of like any farming operation. We had to disc everything and just like put any soil amendments in that we need. Where I live in a very small microclimate and I technically live on an island.
Oh.
It's in the Sacramento River Delta. They're man-made islands, like they've built levees up. So we have an extremely high water table. All of our ground has to be leveled. So like we don't plant on like rolling hills or anything like that. So it
Mm-hmm.
all has to have a good fall so the water can roll off. Um, my vines are planted on berms because of our high water table. So we go through and like we build these little berms that are the whole length of the row. Then we have to put in all of the structures. So every single vine is on a T-post. And then we have cross arms across the top because the way I grow my vines is they come straight up and then they break off like this and then they also go this way. So if you were doing an aerial view, actually mine look like a S. Some people do like a H, what I just kind of did with my fingers. But like if you did an aerial view, that it would come up and go like this, if that kind
Oh.
of makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you picture it? If you were looking
Yeah.
down from the sky down at the vine, it would look like a S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then
feel
go
like
straight into the ground.
the cover of this video, on Instagram, should be a
Oh,
picture of how these are
yeah.
growing to give a visual to what you're saying.
I know. I'll have to see if I can find some pictures to like send you guys too. But okay, so we put in all the stakes and we put in all the drip line. Everything is run on drip line. And then yeah, you put the sticks in the ground. So there's two different ways you can plant wine grapes. You can plant green, which is like a 3-month-old vine. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
grafted. So no, you're not. I don't really know what would happen if you stuck a grape seed in the ground. I'm sorry. I don't really know.
Me either.
I think it's the same with like apples, right? Like no one's planting apple seeds, am I right? Like
True.
it's all
Yeah, it's like all
grafted.
I
trees now at this
actually
point.
have no idea. That next
Yeah,
up is
I
an
think
apple
it's all,
producer.
yeah, yeah. I think it's all grafted. So if you plant green, you're planting basically like a 3-month-old vine. They're probably like this big and they
Hmm.
have like a little bit of green on the top. And you could plant that maybe in like the spring. Or which is this is the option I chose is I chose dormant vines and they're a year old. They are dormant. So when vines go dormant in the winter, all the leaves fall off. It literally looks like a dead stick with roots. Like
Hmm.
again, talk about like stress. It just like, when you get a green one, it's green. And then so
Yeah.
you get the dormant ones, you're like, I'm getting these dead looking sticks and I'm just praying. Um, so I got dormant vines. They did cost a little bit more, but they put me 1 year closer to harvest.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what I wanted. So we actually planted mine in the spring too, because we did it in April. And you just put them all in the ground at every single stake. And everyone does different spacing. That's based on where you are, what kind of variety you're growing, things like that. So that's something that is different. Every single farmer could do it differently. Um, and I have pictures of this that I could send you of like just the
Yes.
sticks in the ground. And then after we put the sticks, we put a grow box, we call them grow tubes. It's basically like an individual greenhouse for
Oh,
every
wow.
single stick. And I think I have like roughly 56,000 vines. So
Wow.
that was a crew. A crew came in and planted all those by
Oh
hand
my
and
gosh.
put a box of
That's
like a
crazy.
cardboard box on top of every single one.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah. And then like through the summer and fall, then like we start popping them open. They open up on the top and we started seeing the green leaves come through. And then, so it's typically the third year is when you get your first harvest. So for me, it was two because I planted the dormant vines. So that sped me up 1 year, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Hmm. Yep.
So then during those 3 years, you're starting to train the vine up the stake. You get it all out, you get your canopy growing, and then the grapes, start to grow. Well, you prune. God, I feel like I could go all over the place. I need like my book. So like so like the year, like let's just go. So from 18 to 20, it's just like water, fertilizer, training it up the stake,
Hmm.
right? That's all you're
Mhm.
focusing on. And so 2020, in the winter when it's all asleep, we prune it all. And grapes have buds, and you only want to leave a certain amount of buds. So like a lot of times we'll cut them to like 3 buds because if
Hmm.
you leave a lot, it grows too wild and crazy and doesn't put any energy into the fruit.
Oh.
So you prune it all to like 2 or 3 buds, depending on how much you want to grow. And then, kind of through the spring, all of the shoots start coming out. You might have to train those shoots to go under a wire that's up on the cross arms. And then there's different stages of the grapes. There's bloom, which is like when things would pollinate, and fruit set, when kind of like, okay, is that actually pollinated and turning into a grape? And then you see the grapes growing. And then there's veraison, which is kind of like when it starts getting soft. They're like hard like a
Hmm.
marble at first, and then they start getting a little bit soft. If you grow red grapes, veraison is when they start turning color. So they all start green. But
Okay.
because I
Hmm.
I grow white wine, they stay green. Um and yeah, I mean through the growing season, again, it's water, fertilizer, and then we do this thing called dusting. So for about 10 weeks, once a week at nighttime, we put on sulfur dust. It is an organic product, and it's just like it's like a fan of air. It just looks like
Hmm.
dust. It's dust. It's called sulfur
Hmm.
dust. And it keeps the grapes from getting like mildew.
Oh.
Um, Yeah, because they're so tight, so they can get mildew really quick out there with the water and the sun, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then so a lot of that, a lot of nighttime shifts, spraying, water, fertilizer, all through the summer. And then in the fall, once veraison has gone through, well, kind of late summer, basically, we start testing the sugar.
Ooh, yummy.
So yeah, so we'll go around the vineyard, kind of cutting out clusters, just kind of in different areas of the vineyard. And I have some videos where I do this. We put them in a Ziploc bag. So just like a 1 gallon bag full of grapes.
Uh-huh.
We smash them all together, get all the juice just by hand. And then we have this little thing it's called a refractometer. And you just suck the juice out of the bag and you place it on. It's almost like looking through like a, oh my God.
Telescope?
Yeah, like
Microscope.
telescope. Microscope. There we go.
Telescope.
I was
Wait,
like,
yeah, telescope.
I was like, telescope, that's the right word, but I was
We're not looking at the moon.
yeah, microscope.
That was my fault.
It's similar-ish to like a microscope. Like I can take it out in the field with me, but it's a little glass. I put the little drips on it, put the glass down, and I look through it at the sun, and it gives me a certain number.
Oh.
And we call that bricks, which is the sugar content. And
Okay.
the wineries want each variety to hit a certain sugar content before they harvest it. Yeah, and then once it's ready, the winery is the one that says go. So the winery comes out, tells you like, okay, we're seeing the sugar we want to see, like let's go, and then we harvest. I don't know if any of that made sense. I tried.
Yeah,
It did.
It did, and I'm just and the whole time I'm thinking like making mental notes, and two quick questions for me with harvesting then. So crew is coming in. So is it the winery that you were then like, so if you don't have your own winery, if you're just the grower and you're selling to a specific wine company, are they the ones bringing in the crew then to collect those grapes, or do you have to bring in your crew and then like ship it to that winery still?
Yes. So this is something with where I live is like, I really could not plant grapes without a contract. If you're in Napa, you can plant grapes and someone's going to buy them because they want to be able to put Napa on their bottle. So that's one thing that's like a little bit different. So the winery does not supply a crew or anything like that. So I do hire a crew and we machine harvest. You're not going to see a machine in Napa. Everything's hand-picked, which is why the bottles are more expensive.
Dang.
So we machine harvest everything. So, but it still does take a crew because there's still at least, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 people on each harvester.
Oh, wow.
So it's still not just a one-person job, but you're not hand-picking everything. So I hire a crew. They come out with their harvesters, and there's 2 different types of contracts you can get. You can get roadside or not. And roadside means the winery sends their own trucks. You put the grapes in the truck and it's theirs. And then if it's not roadside, you also have to pay for a trucker. Okay. So the crew I hire to harvest, they also have trucks. So if I have to truck them myself, which most of the time I don't, most of the time it's the winery, but if I have to, I use them. So they put it into their own trucks and they take it to whatever winery wants it.
Gotcha.
But yeah. And then I don't do any of the wine side. So I personally don't make wine myself. I don't do any of that. So like once it's in the truck, I'm like audio.
Hands off.
Yep. When I went to school in Napa for the 1 year, I took one winemaking class and I was like, not for me. So I'm like, I am sticking to the farming. Winemaking is like 80% cleaning. And I think if you spoke to a winemaker, I think they would agree with me because you cannot cross-contaminate anything.
Yeah.
Like every hose, like every tank, they have a very strict triple wash system.
Wow.
And I'm like, I can't keep my house clean. So this is not for me.
Well, when it comes to the taste of wine, especially a sommelier, how do you say?
Sommelier.
Sommelier. I mean,
Yeah, it's very fancy.
the talent they have, the talent of their taste buds
Yeah,
is wild.
it's insane.
And people take it so seriously, but
I want to be that for coffee, and there is a word for that, but I don't know what it is. There is a thing.
Yeah.
I would get so jazzed up doing that for coffee all
Because
day.
I think I'm a coffee snob. I don't mean to be, but I think I am.
We all have to be a snob about something, you know? Okay, I know you don't do the winemaking, but before I ask my next question, I at least got to know, because I am trying to feel like I'm more well-versed in wine, it's like I've already been drinking or something, but would the grapes then, the longer you let them grow, do they become sweeter? Or would, like, so a white wine that's sweeter, would that be an earlier harvested grape? Or would that be something that grows a little bit longer? Or it's just like, it completely depends across the board. I'm just like curious if it's an earlier or later harvest, the sweeter the wine is.
It can depend on the variety of wine, really.
That makes sense too.
And then also white wines are harvested first because they typically get ripe first. So like typically people that grow different varieties, where I only grow one right now, they'll do all their white wine first and then they'll do their red wine. And I've just found that there are certain varieties that are sweeter versus others. But yeah, I mean, definitely a higher sugar content can definitely affect that. It can also affect the alcohol percentage. Higher sugar can have a higher alcohol percentage because because I do grow such a heavy crop, sometimes I have a hard time like hitting sugar. So when you have a really, really heavy crop, it just is like harder to get there to get that sugar content. And I've had a couple wineries approach me before being like, oh, actually, we're happy to take the lower sugar because we're experimenting with lower alcohol level wine. Because I think that might be kind of like the next thing. People are drinking a little bit less. People kind of want lower alcohol percentages. So using grapes with a lower sugar content could go towards that.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, more of like what do people call it? Like sober curious, or just, finding different ways to enjoy it. They're excited about it.
No, they are not about sober curious.
No, they're like, give us the sugar.
Alcohol.
But then, since we've talked now more about the process, understand all that goes into it, we gotta give people a chance to now support your grapes. So we want to know, and maybe if you want to give like the specific types of grapes that you grow, and then where do your grapes more specifically go into, like, where could we buy that wine in the store?
Yeah, so the contract I have is with Gallo. That's like the parent company.
Okay.
And Gallo, when they bought my grapes, they let me know that the majority of my what is it called? They call it like a program. The program my grapes are going into are Dark Horse, Sauvignon Blanc.
Woohoo!
So, yeah.
If y'all are watching, Becca and I did our research. Except, plug, I literally bought Pinot Grigio. Becca bought the right kind, but it looks the same.
It was close. It was close. Yeah,
almost.
So I only grow Sauvignon Blanc, but it does go all into Dark Horse, and it's a great bottle. It's normally between like $8 to $10, I think. I guess it depends where you live. Who knows what it costs in other states?
Yeah, this was oh my god, I think like $14.
Mine was less than $8.
Oh wow, so interesting.
Pennsylvania. Wait, here, let's listen to this good crack. Hold on.
And shout out to Dark Horse for the twist bottles
twist
instead of a cork.
Wait, hold on. Right here's some ASMR. Let's.
Oh, that's nice.
I know mine's wrong, but it smells good.
Well,
okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It's still good.
So your grapes are going.
Grew it.
And your grapes then are going all across the country. Becca, what's your first review?
My first reaction is I like it more than Kim Crawford.
Woohoo!
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
thank
can't
you.
wait to tell
Thank
my
you.
mother-in-law about this actually. I feel like, so I love
What?
wine. And actually Sauvignon Blanc is like my favorite white summer wine
Oh,
because my
good.
mother-in-law got me hooked on Kim Crawford, where I was typically more of a red wine girl because I went to Napa and it became my personality for a while.
Yes, it
But
happens.
this is like really good. It's a little bit, it's not too sweet, but it definitely is a little bit sweet, but still dry.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
really good.
I mean, I feel like people enjoy it. It's a great glass of wine. I like that it's not super, super cheap, but it's not super, super expensive. You know, people, I just feel like it's that, like, if you're going to a barbecue or something, it's easy to just be like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to grab this one and go. You know, it's a middle of the line. And then when we got married, we did red wine and white wine, and we got all dark horse. We did their red and their white, you know, so
That's awesome.
anything that's 2020 to 2024 now,
Yep.
hope maybe one of
Yeah.
my grapes will be in there.
This is 2023. So
There
your
you
grape
go.
probably is. Your grapes are delicious.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you. I'm so
Yay!
glad. Yeah. So again, I didn't make the wine. There are some amazing winemakers out there that are doing the magic, but I contributed.
Heck yeah, there wouldn't be wine if there weren't the grapes to go in it.
Yes, yes. Thanks
That's
for your
awesome.
support, ladies.
Yeah.
Supporting
Um
women in ag, one bottle at a
Yes,
time.
yeah. I'm like, this is what everyone gets for Christmas. And
Heck yes.
yeah. I love that. And I think, you've started to touch on this, but especially starting from ground zero, kind of rent at least ground zero from your parents. You've had to wear so many hats, like a lot of women in ag, and you also are a mom of still just a little baby. Doesn't matter
yes,
how
just a
old he
little,
I'm
is,
just a
just a little
baby.
guy.
just a little baby. How, and I know this is a tricky question because I don't know if anyone ever finds balance, but between all of it, with such a hands-on business and entrepreneur journey that you're on, how do you find balance in the work, the momming, the having fun? Just how do you do it all?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's really hard to like ever find balance. It is just crazy. Like I've been telling people for probably like the last month now. Like I think so. My son just turned 3 in July, and I've been telling people probably since like his birthday, maybe. Like I finally think I've come to terms that life actually doesn't slow down, like,
Mm.
because I'd be like, oh, like as soon as we're done with this, like I'm gonna have time. But then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, 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 now this next thing's coming up, and then like, oh, right after harvest, it's gonna way slow down, and it's like, no, 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 it never ever slows down, you know. So it is hard to find balance. When I got pregnant, I did bring on a part-time employee. Like that was huge. I had to. I mean, especially being pregnant, even organic products, like there's a lot you just can't be doing when you're
Hmm.
pregnant. And so that helped a lot. That particular employee has his own operation now, but funny enough, I was able to hire someone that came out of California Farm Academy a few years after me.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
So that was our connection, which was so nice. And he's been helping me probably 3 years now. I think I had the one guy that helped me like while I was pregnant, and now I've had a part-time employee that's helped me since I had my son. So that has been huge. Being able to have that extra hand. I kept Waylon home with me for the first year. I wish I could have kept him more, but like I said, because my husband's not involved in the farm at all, like it really is on me. And like I have to have
hmm.
that time, you know? So I did end up putting Waylon in daycare, which has helped a lot, you know, make time for the farming. And that's really like vital. I mean, it's hard because like I wish I could have kept Waylon with me, but it's just too much. It's too much.
Hmm.
Both my parents work full time still. Me and AJ, you know, I'm lucky because I'm flexible that, you know, if I want to do something, I can do it with him. or it, you know, I am lucky in that way because I've constantly said like, if you have two parents that work 9 to 5, like I would have been fired by now. Like between like
Yeah.
seriously, it's just like between like daycare closure or someone is sick or something's happening, and I just have one kid. Like
Yeah.
I do not understand how people are surviving. Like I really,
Mm-hmm.
really don't. So I'm lucky that I am flexible, that like if I absolutely have to take him to do something with me, he can come. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there just is going to be like more screaming in the background. Um,
We'll
you
just do it
know,
anyways.
oh my God, oh my God. And like, I mean, if we're near a tractor, whoa, you know, it's like, no, buddy, we're not driving the tractor right now. Like, I wish we could be in the tractor 24/7, but we can't. Um, but yeah, I think getting help, you know, like that's the only way to find any kind of balance. But between having a part-time employee and then, like I said, when he turned 1, maybe a little after 1, he started going into like a little in-home daycare. That's huge. That's
Mm-hmm.
huge. So otherwise, yeah, I don't know. It's tough now. You know, I just can't. I think Waylon, I shouldn't even say this because and then I get too much. No, no, I get
Don't
too
jinx
much. I
it.
get no, 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 no. Yeah, it's good. It's good the way it
We're,
is.
we're
I don't
reeling
need
it
to.
back.
I'm just gonna say I don't need to add any more chaos to my life. Okay.
And then, yeah, God heard that. And he's like, haha.
Yeah,
But
I know. I know.
I think that I'm sure many moms listening can resonate with that because I think moms, I mean, I'm sure all parents, but especially moms have such a hard time feeling like, oh, I have to do it all. But in reality, you can't do it all, and asking for that help because, you know, maybe it's a trade off in a way that you don't want. Like, of course, you would love for your son to be with you, but having that help allows you to still then focus on things you enjoy and allowing you to still really keep a piece of yourself. So, then you can show up fully for, you know, your family, your sons in other ways. So I think it's always really important for, I think, women to hear that, just like asking for help and knowing that while you are a superhero, like moms are legit superheroes, it's okay if you do have to ask for the help and like can't do everything completely on your own, because that's, I think, such an unrealistic standards that sometimes
Hmm.
we place on ourselves.
Oh, I
Mhm.
know. I know. And the thing is like, again, I am so lucky because I do have a village, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, like my parents work full time. Like
Yeah.
my mom is not the one watching Waylon all week, you know, and I really did have to get help. I couldn't do everything in the vineyard on my own anymore, and I needed Waylon to go to a daycare part time. You know what I mean? It has to happen because there's just no way I could get everything else done. Um, so, you know, the village is important, but if you don't have a village, like, oh God, please, yes, please ask for help. You
Mm-hmm.
deserve it. You deserve it. And sometimes I just wish like I'm like sometimes like even if you're a stay-at-home mom, like maybe daycare 1 day a week is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like give
a
yourself some
hundred
time.
percent.
Yeah, for your
Yeah.
sanity, like more than anything.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you need some time to like rest and recoup, and yeah, it's a lot. And like Waylon is wild, man. He is so wild. Like I mean like since birth, I will always, another like core memory for me is like while Waylon was a really challenging baby, and I have a friend that has a son right around Waylon's same age, and he was in like a farming accident, and we went and visited him. Gosh, they must have been like a year and a half old or something. So I left Waylon with my mom when we went to visit my friend at their house. They had their 1.5 year old. He was so quiet. I think it took me like an hour to even realize he was there, like in the playpen. And I'm just like, what? Like there's a child over there? How did this happen? Like Waylon would have been here for 2 minutes screaming his head off and we would have had to leave. Like so yeah, I needed help with that crazy kid.
Yeah, I think it's just beautiful, and I know chaotic. And again, from the outside looking in, it's easy to be like, "Oh, this is that or that's that." But again, I think it's wonderful to still see women, you know, find whatever path works for them, and again, be lucky enough to have whatever support system it is. Because, yeah, I mean, starting a business, running a business is hard. Being a mom is hard, and then being in agriculture is hard. And it's just so important to, still keep those parts of yourself. And I love that you kind of chat on that. We're just, fully open and honest about it. And I know that you share a lot of your, different parts of your life on social media, whether that's, the wine growing, the grape growing itself, being a mom, just living life, being in agriculture. And I know you have some exciting projects coming up. So if people want to continue following along with you, your life, the grapes, all of that, where can people find you? And is there anything, exciting that they should be on the lookout for?
So the best place to kind of just follow along is Instagram. I'm on all the platforms, but that's definitely the one I'm the most active on. It's at Tara Beaver Coronado, beaver like the animal. And that's what I always say. I don't know. It's like my lifelong thing because people will be like, "What's your last name?" I'm like, Beaver like the animal, which is my maiden name. Um, so yes, on Instagram. And then I do have a really exciting new project coming up, kind of a rebirth. I previously did a project called Field Trips that I ended when Waylon was born. If you watch the last episode, I'm literally 9 months pregnant. So he is 3 now, and I have been dying to bring it back. So it is official. I just announced it on my Instagram today, which I know this podcast will be coming out a little bit later, but I am really, really excited to be bringing back Field Trips. If you live in California and you'd like me to visit your farm or ranch, you can find me on Instagram and connect with me. And then I'm hoping to start making episodes go live in 2025. But I'm so excited. It's all about California agriculture, which I think a lot of people don't realize how diverse it is and just how amazing it is. So I'm excited to highlight it.
Oh, that's so exciting. And it even ties into what you said at the beginning, right? Of very often we feel like growing up, if we're involved in agriculture, it's like, oh, we know so much. But then you realize we only know our own bubble. And there's so many different types of agriculture out there. I mean, even you going from more of like a crop, farm to now winery and like vineyards and all of that. There's just so many diverse aspects of it. And when those episodes do start to release, will those be on Instagram, on YouTube, or both?
So they are going to be on Acres TV. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of
She's
that.
on TV.
Well, it's not really TV, but
It is. It has it in the name, so.
Yes. So Acres TV and on YouTube. It'll be on both those
Awesome.
platforms. So yeah, I'll be posting reels and stuff on Instagram. So people will definitely know when the episodes are coming out. But yeah, they'll be on Acres TV and YouTube. And I'm so excited because I'm just like you guys. I love to learn about other areas of agriculture that I know absolutely nothing about. It's so much fun talking to people in the industry. And it really is crazy because it's like, we're all so stressed and we're all wondering, what have we done? But we love it so much. It's really, I know we're all thinking it. But it's in us, it's in our blood. And like, it is crazy because people that don't come from ag backgrounds that are in agriculture, I feel like, I don't know if you believe in like past lives, but I'm just like, you had to have been like in it in the past life because it's in you. Like when you meet those first generation farmers, like it's in them,
Yeah.
And it's such a strong love. Like you have to love it. You're not going to be a farmer if you don't love it. I mean, even the grumpy farmer loves it. Like my dad, I'm always like, people are like, well, you need to retire. And I'm like, well, then you won't have anything to complain about if he retires. So, it's so fun to talk to those people that whether they have been in it for multi-generation or if they're just starting at it, which I think you guys are just like that. You're interviewing all these people and learning about new things. And it's just so much fun. It fills your cup,
It really does. It's something, we get excited to do and feel so lucky to get to have these conversations.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
And so one of the ways we wanted to wrap up and celebrate one of like these conversations that, you're talking about and you're explaining is to talk about how at the end of the day, we're producing a product for consumers to love. And we're feeding the world, and I feel like, it's just so much fun that you get to see people consuming a product of the hard work that you've put in. So in place of a weekly obsession or hot take, I feel like, and this is more of a weekly obsession or something that you love to do.
Yeah, I guess you can take it either way.
Yeah. Tomato. Yeah. So I guess, Tara, what are some ways that you love to enjoy a good glass of your dark horse wine, or like what's a really good pairing that you could have with it?
Yeah, what do they even suggest? Like, do they suggest like a perfect way to enjoy your Sauvignon Blanc?
Well, I think Sauvignon Blanc is a great summer wine because it's really good chilled. So, I mean, it really is something like if you want to bring it to the barbecue, like you can, or if you're trying to do a nice dinner, you can, you can bring it in. I mean, I'm not an expert though. So I'm sure if you talk to a sommelier, they're going to be like, no, you can't be drinking the white wine with the pasta. But you
This
could.
is for the casual people anyways.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I'd bring it to the barbecue. I'd bring it to the barbecue, the burgers, the ribs, all that kind of stuff. It's a really good summer wine because you drink it chilled. I know we're going kind of into winter, and I do feel like reds are more popular in winter because they're not chilled. But yeah, it's just an easy one to drink. I feel like that's the nice thing. I also feel like it's a really great starter wine. Like, I feel like if you're just starting to get into wine, I know like when I very first started drinking wine, like I did not like reds. Like it just wasn't, I know some people do. I don't have the sophisticated palate.
Same.
So, so like reds weren't really my thing. And I do feel like drinking some whites, like Sauvignon Blanc, like they're not too crazy or anything. And it's a good starter. Yeah.
It is a good way to get introduced. I feel like
agree with
Becca
that,
can have more of a hot take.
Well, no, I think this is the wine that we love to drink during the summer. It's a great pool wine. Like, honestly, it's a great throw it in your tumbler and take it to the beach wine. And we come from a family that loves citrus and lemon. So I think that this is really something if you're trying to impress people and you want to cook like a really good lemon chicken or something like that and pair it with a nice ice crispy cold Sauvignon Blanc, that would be great.
Yeah, and even if y'all can see, as Tara's in California, I feel like you could lean into this wine honestly year round, and I'm in Florida, so luckily it's something I feel like we can lean into majority of the time because, yeah, if anyone is not, I would say maybe even a little intimidated by wines, I feel like white wines are a nice way to get introduced. They're not too dry. Well, at least like, let's say Sauvignon Blanc or even a Pinot Grigio, they're not super dry, but they're not overwhelmingly sweet.
They're
very
it's
a nice way to
accessible.
kind of ease into it. Yeah,
they're an accessible wine. They're a wine for the masses, is what I'll say.
Yeah, I'm glad Becca said the one thing about like cooking, because actually Sauvignon Blanc is a really good cooking wine as well. I feel like so you could, if you just want like a wine to cook with, like it's a good one too. It's a good option. It's
sounds like
so one thing I didn't talk about, which this is just like a little tiny thing, is like when I did plant my grapes, the winery came to me with a couple different options. So like I actually didn't just like out of the so many different varietals of wine, I didn't just pick Sauvignon Blanc. They said like, here's like, I think they gave me 3 options. And I went to my mentor and was like, here are the 3 options. And there actually was another white wine where they were willing to pay more for me to grow this variety, but it was a more niche variety. And my mentor, and he was correct. He's like, Sauvignon Blanc is a staple. Like there's like a couple reds people know and a couple whites. Like if someone doesn't know a lot about wine, and majority, if they know just a little bit, like they know Sauvignon Blanc, it's a little bit more of a staple. It's going to be safer as your first variety that you're going to grow. So that is why I went with it, which I think is true. Like right now, the wine market is down. And I think if I was growing that other variety, it would be a lot more difficult to be selling it when the market is down. But because I picked kind of like the safer one, I think it was a smart decision,
It's like the that made me think, Sauvignon Blanc is kind of the Cabernet of white wines. Like everyone knows a good Cabernet, and that's
Everyone
probably
knows Cab.
Everyone knows Cab. And so
Yeah.
I 100% agree. If we ever have wine, well, we always have wine in our house, but it's because that's one of those things. Honestly, a good wine, a good bourbon, and a good tequila are like the three things I feel like to have if you're bringing over friends and you just do a little something for everybody. Those, in my opinion, are the staples. Like we always have Sauvignon Blanc. We always have a good Cab. My husband has plenty of good bourbons, and I always have a good tequila.
He's a collection.
So
Yeah.
Now every time Becca's gonna look in her little cabinet every time and think of Tara now, and think of Beaver, and think of California grapes. Yay!
That's right. Yeah, yeah. If I can tell everyone that's listening one important thing, know where your wine is coming from. Okay. Like if you are like a wine drinker, like I understand sometimes like you're just grabbing that one bottle and you just want to go. But like the wine industry is hurting because of how much is being imported. So if you want to support not just California, like please support California wine. But if you just want to support the American farmer, even if it's in your state, like just check where that wine is coming from. You know, it's good to know if you buy a bottle constantly.
I love that.
That's an important point.
And I know it's fun to be able to be like, this bottle's from France or whatever, but the American farmer in many industries is hurting. Yeah. And it's the same in wine, and people might not realize it. But if you can get those American brands, it would mean a lot.
I love that. All right, everyone, your call to action after listening to this. Go buy a bottle of American-grown wine if you would prefer Dark Horse Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes.
You know, and before we go, I did not pitch this idea to Emmy, but I just thought of a business idea for you. I was thinking about how nice it is that this Dark Horse bottle is a screw top. Like you can just put the cap back on and back off. But one of my most irritating things is when I like can't get the cork back in and the wine topper or stopper or whatever I have gets really sticky. But I was just thinking of you like tell people, oh, my last name is Beaver, like the animal. You could make really cute little like beaver wine stoppers.
Oh, I love it.
That supports like the California wine farmer. So whenever you do that and make a lot of money off that merch, let me know if that was a good idea or not. But it has just been like sitting on my brain. She should make a
Becca
Beaver
was just
Vineyard
bursting at the
cute
seams.
Little beaver wine stopper. Support California wine or support American.
I'm gonna email my merch guy right now.
We'll be your first customers.
Get me a beaver wine stopper.
We'll be first.
I don't know what you can find on Amazon.
Hey, we buy cow everything, right? Like I have a cow wine stopper. I would totally buy a beaver wine stopper. It's a little more unique, anyways.
Yeah.
See, I got my beaver. I just got my beaver charm the other day.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't it cute? I'm like, next I gotta find little grapes. That's my next hunt.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Now I'm going to have like a weird obsession with beavers after this conversation. But Tara, thank you so much for joining us and on this conversation, allowing it to kind of go a lot of different ways and talking the different aspects of what running a business is and being involved in agriculture is. And I know we'll link all of your socials and such in the show notes if anyone does want to follow along and see more of what her journey includes and different things like that. And of course, for Cowgirl Talk, all of our social handles are in the show notes as well. And if you enjoyed this episode, we always appreciate feedback, reviews, anything and everything in between. And again, if you want to support Tara more specifically in her grapes, the Dark Horse Sauvignon Blanc is how you can do so.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. And as always, have a great day. Oh my God.
The wine, the one sip of
wine.
It's the wine.
It's that good. Have a great day, cowgirls.
Bye.
Bye.